A poor cleaning lady shares her food with a little girl in a wheelchair, without imagining she's the daughter of the billionaire who owns the company. The clock showed 6:30 a.m. when June pushed her cleaning cart through the entrance of the Continental Tower. The wheels squeaked on the polished floor, but nobody paid attention to that sound. It was as if she were part of the furniture, necessary yet completely ignored. June liked this time of day. The hallways were still empty, quiet, without the rush of executives or the clacking of high heels from the assistants. She could work in peace, lost in her own thoughts, planning what to do when she got home to take care of her mother. She took the first rag from the cart and began wiping down the windows on the ground floor. Automatic, precise movements, 5 years doing the same thing, in the same place, for the same people who never greeted her. Sometimes June wondered if anyone would notice if she simply disappeared. Probably not. The first group of employees arrived at 8 in the morning. June was already on the second floor, vacuuming the reception area carpet. They passed by her talking about meetings, deadlines, reports. Their voices merged into a constant buzz she had learned to filter out. "Good morning," she murmured to a woman wearing a blue suit. The woman didn't even glance in her direction. June sighed and continued vacuuming. She wasn't supposed to feel bad. That was just how things worked. She cleaned, they worked, everyone went about their lives. Throughout the morning, June went up and down the floors with her cart. She wiped desks, emptied trash cans, organized meeting rooms. People walked past her as if she were invisible. A man bumped into her in the hallway without even apologizing. An assistant left spilled coffee on a table, knowing June would clean it. An executive tossed paper on the floor right in front of her. She picked it all up in silence. It was her job. It was her life. "Excuse me," said a young intern, gently nudging her aside. June stepped away without complaining. On the third floor, a woman was loudly talking on the phone about personal problems while June cleaned around her. The woman didn't even pause the conversation, as if June didn't exist. "Invisible," June muttered to herself, wiping the table. That was exactly how she felt. Invisible. Around 9:30, while June was organizing a meeting room on the 5th floor, she heard voices in the hallway. She paid no attention. It was always the same talk about work, numbers, strategies. Outside, Miles Stewart was holding his young daughter's hand while pushing a pink wheelchair down the hallway. He was running late, stressed out, and clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Ellie, listen," he said, stopping in front of a small empty room. "Your nanny couldn't stay with you today because she got sick. Dad had no choice, so I had to bring you to the company." The 5-year-old girl looked at him with large, expressive eyes, holding a doll on her lap. "You're going to stay in this room, okay? I brought your toys, books, and some crayons. Everything you need is here." Miles opened the door and showed her a room with a table, a few chairs, and a small window. He set a pink backpack on the table. "For how long, Dad?" "A few hours. I have very important meetings today. You stay here nice and quiet, play or color. You can't leave the room, understood?" Ellie nodded. "If you need anything, you can call me on my cell phone, but only if it's really important, okay?" "Okay." Miles kissed his daughter's forehead quickly and left, closing the door behind him. He was already thinking about his first meeting, the reports he needed to review, the clients he had to call. Within minutes, he had completely forgotten about his daughter. Ellie was left alone in that small room. She opened the backpack and took out some toys, a doll, a teddy bear, crayons, and a picture book. She sat in the chair and tried to have fun. For an hour, she drew, she made flowers, houses, butterflies. Then she flipped through the book, looking at animal pictures. She played a bit with the doll, making up little conversations. But she quickly started to feel bored. The room was too quiet. There wasn't anything interesting to see through the window, just other grey buildings. The clock on the wall seemed to tick far too slowly. Ellie sighed and leaned back in the chair. What a boring place. Another hour went by. She tried to draw again, but had no desire. She tried to read, but the words seemed jumbled. Not even her favorite doll could hold her attention. She was hungry too. Her dad had forgotten to bring any snacks. Ellie looked at the door. Dad had told her not to leave, But he'd also said he'd come back soon, and it had already been a long time. Maybe she could just take a quick peek outside. She got out of the chair, walked over to the door and opened it slowly. The hallway was empty. Silent. Ellie went back to grab her doll and then left the room. She wouldn't go far. She just wanted to see the rest of the building. She pushed the wheelchair along the corridor, exploring. There were many doors, many rooms with people working. Nobody paid attention to her. It was as if she were invisible. She went from one floor to another. She found an elevator and, curious, pressed a few buttons. When the doors opened, she entered and went down a couple more floors. The building was huge. There were long hallways, large rooms, and people walking back and forth with folders and papers. Everyone seemed too busy to notice a small girl in a pink wheelchair. After wandering alone for almost 2 hours, Ellie found a glass door leading to a different place. She pushed the door open and found herself in a small, lovely indoor garden. There were potted plants, a wooden bench, and soft sunlight filtered through the large windows. It was peaceful there, very different from the bustling hallways. Ellie stopped her chair near the plants. She hugged her doll and looked around. What a beautiful place. Then she heard footsteps behind her. June had finished cleaning the 6th floor and came down to her favorite spot in the building, the small indoor garden where she always took her lunch break. It was noon, and she was hungry. When she pushed open the glass door and entered the garden, she stopped in surprise. There was a little girl there. She was in a pink wheelchair near the potted plants, her back turned to the door, hugging a doll. She looked so tiny and alone in that space. June stood still for a moment, watching her. The child hadn't noticed her presence and continued looking at the plants with interest. Slowly, June approached. "Hi, sweetheart." The girl turned around quickly. She had big brown eyes and didn't look scared, just curious. "Hi," she said softly. June crouched down to get on the child's level. "I'm June. I work here cleaning the offices. What's your name?" "Ellie." "That's a beautiful name, Ellie. What are you doing here all by yourself?" Ellie clutched the doll more tightly. "I was exploring. My dad brought me to his company today." June looked around. She didn't see any adults nearby. "And where is he now?" "Working. In an important meeting." The simplicity of the answer made June's heart tighten. Such a small child, alone in a place like that. "You found the garden all by yourself?" "Yes. I was wandering around the company and saw this door. It's pretty here." June sat on the floor beside Ellie, careful not to startle her. "It's my favorite place in the entire building. I come here every day at lunchtime." "Why?" "Because it's peaceful. And the plants feel like friends that don't ask questions." Ellie smiled a little. June took out a sandwich wrapped in foil from her bag. As she unwrapped it, she noticed Ellie watching intently. "Have you had lunch today?" June asked gently. Ellie shook her head. "My dad forgot to bring food." The indignation June felt was immediate, but she controlled her expression. It wasn't time to judge, it was time to help. "How about we share then?" June cut the sandwich in half and held out a piece to Ellie. "It's just ham and cheese, but it's fresh." Ellie's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Of course, sweetheart." Ellie took the half sandwich with her small hands. "Thank you, I'm so hungry." They ate in silence for a few minutes. June watched the girl discreetly, noticing how she chewed slowly, savoring each bite. "Ellie," June said softly. "Yes." "How long have you been wandering around the company on your own?" Ellie thought for a moment. "Maybe 2 hours, I think. My dad left me in a room with toys, but I got bored. So I decided to explore. And nobody saw you. Some people walked by me, but nobody said anything. It's like I'm invisible." The word struck June like a punch. Invisible. It was exactly how she felt every day. "I know that feeling," June said quietly. "You do?" "Yes, I do. Sometimes I also feel invisible here." Ellie stopped eating and studied June's face. "But you work here. People must see you." June smiled sadly. "Working in a place doesn't mean people truly see you. Sometimes they only see what you do, not who you are." Ellie nodded as if she understood perfectly. "It's kind of like me. People see the wheelchair, but they don't see me." June looked at the pink chair and then at Ellie. Have you always used the chair? Ellie shook her head. No, it was after the car accident. Her voice turned quieter, more serious. My mum died in the accident, and I ended up like this. She pointed at her legs. That's why I need the chair now. June felt her heart stop for a second. Such a young child carrying so much weight. My dad got really sad after that happened. He works a lot now, almost all the time. He says he needs to work to take care of me, but I hardly ever see him. Ellie hugged her doll even tighter. He doesn't have time for me. There are always important meetings, important calls, important things. I think I'm less important than those things. June's heart ached. So much wisdom and so much pain in such a small child. Well, June said, I see you and you see me too. Ellie smiled. The first genuine smile since June had found her. Yeah, I really do. They finished eating the sandwich in a comfortable silence, watching the plants sway gently in the breeze that came through the windows. June. Yes, sweetheart. Thank you for sharing your lunch with me. You're welcome, Ellie. It was a pleasure to have company. Can I come here again? June felt a warm sensation spread through her chest. Of course you can. Any time. It would be nice to have a friend to share the garden with. A friend? If you want. Ellie nodded enthusiastically. Yes, I do. At that moment, June realized something had changed. For the first time in a very long time, someone had chosen her. Someone wanted her company. And for the first time in a very long time, she didn't feel invisible. Ellie? Yes? You made me very happy today. The girl hugged her doll and smiled. You made me happy too, June. In that little silent garden, two people who knew very well the feeling of being ignored found exactly what they needed in each other. Someone who truly saw them. Miles Stewart glanced at the clock in the corner of his computer screen and felt a pang in his stomach. It was 2:30 p.m. The meeting had lasted almost 3 hours, far more than he had planned, Ellie. He had left his daughter in that small room earlier, promising he'd be right back. That was over 5 hours ago. I have to go, Miles said abruptly, closing his laptop in the middle of the client's presentation. But we still have important points to discuss, James, his partner, protested. We can discuss them later. I have something to take care of. Miles left the conference room without looking back, leaving 3 men in suits puzzled by his sudden exit. Normally, he would never interrupt a high-level meeting like that. He would never put anything above work. But the image of his daughter alone in that small room wouldn't leave his mind. He took the elevator to the 5th floor, where he had left Ellie. His footsteps echoed in the empty hallway as he walked to the room. What kind of father forgets his own child for 5 hours? What kind of father leaves a 5-year-old locked in a room without even remembering to bring food? When he reached the door, Miles took a deep breath before opening it. The room was empty. Ellie's pink backpack was still on the table, a few drawings scattered next to the crayons, but the wheelchair wasn't there. Ellie wasn't there. Panic rose in Miles's throat like a cold wave. Ellie! He shouted into the empty hallway. Ellie! Where are you? No response. Miles began running through the corridors, checking every room, every corner. He asked assistants, executives, anyone who crossed his path. Have you seen a little girl in a pink wheelchair? A 5-year-old child, brown hair. My daughter, she was in a room here on the 5th floor. The answers were always the same. No. Sorry, haven't seen anyone. How was it possible? How could a child in a wheelchair simply vanish from a building full of people? Miles went down floor by floor, getting more desperate each time. What if she had tried to leave the building on her own? What if something had happened to her? What if... He stopped on the 2nd floor, trying to breathe, trying to think clearly. Ellie was curious. She always had been. If she was bored, she would have gone exploring. But where would a 5-year-old go in a corporate building? Then he remembered the indoor garden. Ellie had always loved plants. At their house, she used to sit in the backyard and look at the flowers her mom had planted before the accident. Miles ran toward the garden, his heart pounding. Please let her be there, please let her be safe. When he pushed open the glass door and entered the garden, what he saw stopped him in his tracks. Ellie was in her pink wheelchair near the potted plants, but she wasn't alone. A middle-aged woman was sitting on the bench beside her, the cleaning lady he always saw in the hallways but never really noticed. They were talking quietly, and Ellie was smiling. It wasn't a polite or forced smile. It was genuine, joyful, the kind he hadn't seen on his daughter's face in months, maybe not since before the accident. Miles stood at the entrance, watching the scene. The cleaning lady said something that made Ellie laugh, a soft, sweet laugh that sounded like music to his ears. When was the last time he'd heard his daughter laugh like that? The woman had brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail, wore the blue cleaning uniform, and there was something in her posture that radiated kindness. She was talking to Ellie as though she was the most important thing in the world, giving her full attention. Miles felt like an intruder, witnessing this moment. "Ellie," he finally said, causing them both to turn around. Ellie's smile faded a little when she saw her dad, but it didn't vanish entirely. The cleaning lady quickly stood up, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, sir. I found your daughter here and—" "Dad," Ellie interrupted, wheeling toward Miles. "Are you done with your meeting?" Miles crouched in front of the wheelchair, his hands trembling slightly. "Ellie, I was worried. You weren't in the room. Why did you leave?" "I was bored," she answered simply. "I waited a long time. Then I decided to explore the building and found this garden." Miles looked at the cleaning lady, who was gathering her bag and clearly trying to leave discreetly. "Wait," he said. "Thank you for taking care of her." The woman stopped, looking surprised that he was speaking to her. "It was nothing, sir. She's a very polite little girl." "What were you two doing?" Ellie answered before the cleaning lady could speak. "The cleaning lady talked to me and gave me half of her lunch." Miles felt something contract in his chest. His daughter had gone hungry because he forgot to bring food, and a stranger, a cleaning lady he had never truly noticed, had shared her own lunch with Ellie. "What's your name?" Miles asked the woman. "June, sir." "June," he repeated. "Thank you, June, really." June nodded and started heading for the door, but Ellie called out, "June, can I come back here tomorrow?" The woman looked at Miles, uncertain. "If your dad lets you—" "Yes," Miles said quickly. "You can come back whenever you want." June smiled, a shy but genuine smile. "See you tomorrow then, Ellie. See you tomorrow." When June left, Miles was alone with his daughter in the silent garden. Ellie still had that smile on her face, calmer than he had seen her in months. "Did you like talking to her?" Miles asked. "I liked it a lot. She's kind. And she really listened to me." Her words hit Miles like a slap. She really listened to me. When was the last time he had truly listened to his daughter? When was the last time he gave her his full attention, without thinking about work, meetings, or company problems? "What did you two talk about?" Ellie hugged her doll against her chest. "Plants. June knows a lot about them. And about Mom, too." "About Mom?" June said nice things about her. Miles felt something tighten inside his chest. It had been a long time since he'd spoken about his wife with Ellie. Work always got in the way of those important conversations. Ellie's smile grew. "Can I tell you about the plants June showed me?" Miles glanced at his phone. He still had 2 meetings scheduled that afternoon. "Ellie, I'm running late. We have to go now." Her smile faded a bit. "Oh, okay. Come on. I need to get back to the office and you'll stay in the room." Miles walked over to the wheelchair, ready to push it. "Bye, June," Ellie said, waving toward the cleaning lady. "Bye, Ellie. It was so nice talking to you. Can I come back tomorrow?" Miles answered quickly. "We'll see. Depends on the schedule." As he pushed Ellie's wheelchair toward the exit, Miles glanced one last time at the small garden. A simple place, with ordinary plants and a wooden bench. Nothing special. But here, his daughter had found something that changed her mood completely. She looked different, happier. Miles shook his head and continued to the elevator. He had meetings to deal with, and Ellie needed to go back to that room where she would stay safe until the end of the workday. The next morning, Ellie woke up with an idea. She was sitting at the breakfast table, stirring her cereal with a spoon, when she remembered June's kindness the day before. The cleaning lady had shared her lunch, had talked to her, had made her feel special. Ellie wanted to return the favor. "Dad," she said when Miles walked into the kitchen, already wearing his suit and checking his phone. he replied without looking at her, picking up a cup of coffee. Can I bring an extra snack today? Why? To give to June. She shared her lunch with me yesterday. Miles paused for a second, looking at his daughter. June, the cleaning lady. She was really nice to me. Miles nodded absent-mindedly. Okay, ask Maria to prepare something. He was already thinking about the 9 o'clock meeting, the reports he needed to review, and the emails piling up in his inbox. Ellie smiled and called Maria, the housekeeper. Maria, could you make an extra sandwich for me to bring along? Of course, sweetheart. What kind would you like? Same as mine. And maybe a piece of fruit too. Maria smiled and prepared a neat lunch, packing it in a small, colorful lunchbox. Ellie watched eagerly, excited to see June's reaction. An hour later, she was at her dad's company again in the same small room as the day before. But this time was different. She wasn't bored or sad. She was excited, waiting for the right moment to go to the garden. Miles had left her there in the same rush as always, talking about important meetings and asking her to stay quiet. But Ellie barely paid attention. She had a mission. At 11:30 a.m., she left the room and walked through the corridors toward the garden. She expected to find June there, but the garden was empty. Ellie felt a bit disappointed for a moment, but decided to wait. June had said she always came to the garden at lunchtime. Noon arrived, and June pushed open the glass door as she did every day. When she saw Ellie waiting in the garden, a spontaneous smile lit up her face. Ellie, you came back. I did, and I brought something for you. June approached, curious. Ellie was holding a colorful lunchbox in her lap. This is for you, Ellie said, handing her the lunchbox. To thank you for yesterday. June stood still for a moment, clearly surprised. For me? Yes, there's a sandwich, an apple, and even a juice box. Maria made it all with extra care. June took the lunchbox with trembling hands. When she opened it, she saw a sandwich neatly cut into triangles, a bright red apple, a juice box, and even a small bag of cookies. Ellie, this is so thoughtful of you. You shared yours with me yesterday. Now I'm sharing mine with you. June felt her eyes well up with tears. It had been so long since anyone had shown her this kind of thoughtfulness, so long since anyone cared enough to return a kind gesture. Thank you, sweetheart. This means so much to me. Can we eat together? Of course we can. They settled in the garden, June on the bench and Ellie in her wheelchair beside it. June opened the lunchbox and offered half of the sandwich to Ellie. No, Ellie said, shaking her head. That one is yours. I brought my own too. She showed another snack she had in her backpack. June smiled, touched. The child had thought of everything. While they ate, they talked about the plants, the birds that sometimes appeared in the garden, and simple things that made them both smile. June talked about her mother, about how caring for her was sometimes difficult but also rewarding. Ellie spoke about her doll, about how she liked to make up stories. June? Yes. Are you my friend? The question caught June off guard. She looked at that small girl with sincere eyes and a hopeful smile. Of course I am, Ellie. I would be honored to be your friend. Great. I've never really had a true friend before. June felt her heart tighten. How could such a sweet child have no friends? Well, now you do. And I do too, Ellie beamed. She's my friend, as she said, as if testing out the words. June is my friend. From the other side of the glass door, Miles was watching. He had left a meeting earlier than usual and decided to check on Ellie. When he didn't find her in the room, he guessed she might have gone to the garden again. But what he saw when he arrived made him stop at the entrance. His daughter was glowing, completely different from the quiet, sad child he had grown used to seeing over the past months. She laughed, gestured, looked genuinely happy. And all because of the cleaning lady. Miles also watched June. The woman gave Ellie her complete attention, listened to every word, responded with genuine interest. No rush, no distraction, just total presence. When was the last time he had given Ellie that kind of attention? Ellie said something that made June laugh, and the sound of his daughter's laughter hit Miles like a punch to the gut. He couldn't remember the last time he'd heard her laugh like that. He decided to go in. Ellie! They both turned around. Ellie's smile faded a bit when she saw her dad. "Hi, Dad. Are you done with your meeting?" "I finished. I came to see how you were." June stood up quickly, clearly uncomfortable with his presence. "I'll be going, sir. I need to get back to work." "Wait," Miles said. I'd like to speak with you." June hesitated. "Ellie," Miles continued, "could you give us a minute? Stay here with your plants." Ellie nodded, turning her attention back to the pots, while Miles and June stepped a few paces away. "I want to thank you again for looking after my daughter," Miles began. "It was nothing, sir. It was something, and I'd like to understand, what did you do with her?" June looked confused. "What do you mean?" "She's changed. Happier. Yesterday, when I found her here, she was smiling for the first time in months. Today, too. What did you do?" June remained silent for a moment, as if choosing her words. "I just listened," she finally said. "You listened?" "Yes, she wanted to talk, so I listened." Miles waited for her to continue, but June stayed quiet. "And that's it. Sometimes that's all a person needs, someone who truly listens." June's words echoed in Miles's mind. When was the last time he had truly listened to his daughter? Not just responded with while checking emails, but really stopped everything to hear her out. Did she talk about anything in particular? June hesitated again. "She misses you." Those words hit Miles like a slap. "Misses me. But I'm here every day." "Being physically present isn't the same as truly being present," June said gently. Miles felt his defenses rising. "I work hard to give her a good life, to pay for treatments, physical therapy, everything she needs. I know, sir, and she knows too, but what?" She just wanted to talk about her mother, about how she feels, about simple day-to-day things. She has a lot of love to give, but no one to receive it. The silence that followed was heavy. Miles looked at Ellie, who was humming softly as she examined the plants. She said that, not in those exact words, but a child doesn't need to say everything for us to understand. Miles swallowed hard. A stranger, a cleaning lady, had understood his daughter better than he had. What else did she say? That she loves you very much, that she knows work is important, but that she sometimes feels lonely. Each word was like a pinprick to Miles's heart. "She's only 5, June continued softly. "She lost her mother in a terrible accident. She ended up in a wheelchair. That's a lot for any child to handle alone." "She's not alone. She has a nanny. She has Maria." "Sir," June interrupted gently, "with all due respect, it's not the same. She needs her father." Miles remained silent, watching his daughter. Ellie had stopped humming and was looking at them curiously. "I don't know how to do that," Miles admitted quietly. "Do what?" "Be a father. After the accident, I got lost. Working was easier, safer. I knew how to solve problems at work. But with her emotions, her missing her mum, I don't know what to do." June looked at him with compassion. "You don't have to fix everything. Sometimes just being there is enough. Just listening. Like you did. Like I did." Miles looked at June, really looked at her for the first time. He saw a kind woman with tired eyes but a gentle spirit. A woman who had given his daughter what he couldn't, full attention and genuine listening. "She brought you lunch today," he observed. June smiled. "She did. She said she wanted to repay my kindness from yesterday." "And what do you think about that?" "That she has a huge heart and that she was raised very well." Miles felt a mixture of pride and guilt. "Dad," Ellie called, "can I show June the drawing I did yesterday?" Miles glanced at June, who nodded encouragingly. "Sure," he said. As Ellie excitedly showed her drawing, Miles watched their interaction. The ease with which June talked to his daughter, the natural smiles Ellie gave her, the light, happy atmosphere that formed when they were together. That was how it should be between him and Ellie. But it wasn't. "June," he said once Ellie had finished showing her picture. "Yes, sir." "Thank you for everything." June nodded. "No need to thank me. Ellie is a special girl. Anyone would be happy to spend time with her." But Miles knew that wasn't true. Not everyone would care. Not everyone would take the time to truly listen to a 5-year-old child. Not everyone would look beyond the wheelchair and the emotional scars. June had seen his daughter, truly seen her, and Ellie had blossomed under that attentive gaze. "Let's go, Ellie," Miles finally said. "I have to get back to work." "Already?" Ellie asked, disappointed. "Yes, but tomorrow you can come back and talk to June." Ellie's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Yes. Bye, June. Thank you for enjoying my lunch." "Thank you, sweetheart. It was the best lunch I've ever had." As he pushed Ellie's wheelchair back into the building, Miles reflected on his conversation with June. Her words echoed in his mind. "She misses you." She just wanted to talk. So simple, so obvious, and so hard for him. But something had changed in that conversation. A small crack had formed in the walls he'd built around his heart since the accident, and for the first time in months, Miles began to wonder if maybe it was time to try again, to try being a father again. Miles shut the door to his office behind him and made his way to the leather armchair behind his desk. He had left Ellie in that small room again, but something felt different this time. He couldn't shake June's words from his mind. "She misses you." She just wanted to talk. He sat down and tried to focus on the reports scattered across his desk, but the letters looked jumbled. The computer was on, emails blinked on the screen demanding attention, yet Miles couldn't concentrate. He stood up and walked to the large window overlooking the city. Down below, people hurried along sidewalks. Cars rushed by in a steady stream. Everyone was in a hurry to get somewhere, just like him. Always in a hurry, always busy, always running away. Miles returned to his desk and picked up the photo beside his computer. It was an old picture. Him, Sarah, and Ellie at the park. Ellie was 3 years old, running on the grass with her arms spread out, laughing. Sarah was next to him, smiling, her hand on her growing belly with a second baby who never arrived. They were happy in that photo. For months, Miles hadn't been able to look at that image. Now, holding it, he felt the weight of everything he had lost that day. It was a Saturday afternoon. Sarah had taken Ellie out for ice cream. He had stayed home, working on an important report due on Monday. There was always an important report, always something that couldn't wait. "Come with us, honey," Sarah had asked. "Ellie wants to show you the new ice cream shop." "I can't. I have to finish this." "You can finish later." "Sarah, it's important. Just go without me this time." She had sighed, kissed his forehead, and left with Ellie. The last thing he heard was his daughter's laughter echoing down the hallway. 2 hours later, he got the call from the hospital. Miles set the photo down on the desk with trembling hands. Even after 2 years, the guilt still burned like acid. If he had gone with them, maybe he would have been driving. Maybe he would have seen the car that ran the red light. Maybe he would have swerved. Maybe Sarah would still be alive. Maybe Ellie would still be able to walk. He stood abruptly and walked over to the mirror on the office wall. The man staring back at him was a stranger. Premature grey hair, tired eyes, distant expression. When had he become this person? Miles touched his own reflection in the glass. "You're a coward," he said to himself. The words were low, but filled with a truth he had avoided for 2 years. After the accident, he had thrown himself into work like a man diving into the sea to escape a fire. Not because the work was so important, not because he needed the money. He had dived into work because there, among reports and meetings, he didn't have to feel. He didn't have to see Ellie's empty gaze when she woke up in the hospital and asked about her mom. He didn't have to deal with the nights she cried, calling for Sarah. He didn't have to face his own guilt for not having been in the car that day. Work had become his hiding place, his refuge, his excuse not to be there emotionally when his daughter needed him most. Miles stepped away from the mirror and returned to his desk. He picked up his phone and scrolled through photos of Ellie. There weren't many. He realized now that he had stopped taking pictures of her after the accident, as if wanting to freeze time before the tragedy. But among the few recent photos, one caught his attention. It was from yesterday, when he passed by the garden and saw Ellie talking to June. He had taken it without even noticing, driven by an impulse to capture that rare moment of happiness. In the image, Ellie was smiling, a real, spontaneous smile that lit up her entire face. She was gesturing, clearly telling a story to June, who listened with total attention. When was the last time Ellie had smiled like that at him? Miles couldn't remember. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He had hidden so deeply in his own guilt that he'd forgotten Ellie was suffering too. She had lost her mother. She was dealing with the aftermath of the accident, but on top of that, she had lost her father as well. Not because he died, but because he chose to be absent. Miles leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He remembered the first weeks after the accident. Ellie, small and confused in the hospital bed, asking why her legs wouldn't move, asking when Mom would come visit, asking if Dad was mad at her. "Why do you think I'm mad?" he had asked. "Because you don't stay with me anymore," she answered with the brutal honesty of a child. Even then, at only 3 years old, she sensed the distance he was creating. And instead of getting closer, he drifted further away. Miles opened his eyes and looked again at the photo of Ellie smiling in the garden. A cleaning lady, a complete stranger, had achieved in 2 conversations what he hadn't in months, making his daughter smile. And all June had done was listen, something so simple, so basic, and he couldn't do it. Not because he didn't know how to, but because he was too busy running from his own feelings to notice Ellie needed him. "I hid in my work so I wouldn't feel," Miles murmured to the empty office, "but my daughter felt everything. She felt the loss of her mom. She felt the pain of losing the use of her legs. She felt the loneliness of having a father who was physically present but emotionally absent, and he had left a 5-year-old to handle all of that alone." Miles got up and walked to the window again. Down below, a father was pushing a baby stroller. The child pointed at something, and the father stopped, crouched down and talked to the little one. A simple, everyday moment that Miles no longer had with Ellie. When was the last time he truly stopped to hear what his daughter wanted to say? When was the last time he got down on her level and gave her his full attention? He couldn't remember. And that was devastating. Miles returned to the desk and picked up the family photo again. Sarah was smiling in it, happy and confident they had a whole life ahead of them. If she could see him now, what would she say? Would she be proud of the father he'd become, or disappointed in the man who had emotionally abandoned their daughter when she needed him most? The answer was too clear to deny. Miles put the photo away in the drawer, not because he wanted to forget Sarah, but because he needed to stop living in the past and start creating a present for Ellie. He sat down again and opened his laptop. There were dozens of emails to answer, 3 reports to review, 2 proposals to analyze. His schedule was packed for the rest of the week, but for the first time in 2 years, none of that felt urgent. None of it felt more important than the daughter who was just a few doors down, probably bored, probably alone, probably wishing someone would talk to her. Miles closed the laptop. He picked up his phone and cancelled the 3 p.m. POS meeting. Then he cancelled the 4 p.m. POS meeting. James called within minutes, confused. "Miles, what's going on?" "The clients are waiting. Reschedule for tomorrow." "But that's impossible. The proposal must be delivered today." "Then you deliver it. I trust your judgment." "Miles, are you okay? Since when do you cancel meetings?" "Since today." Miles hung up before James could protest further. He stood up, straightened his tie, and walked to the door. For the first time in months, he wasn't going to check on Ellie. He was going to get her to spend time with her. Real time. Time without distractions. When he opened the door to the small room where Ellie was waiting, she looked up from the picture she was drawing, surprised. "Dad? Are you done working?" "I'm done. But it's not even 3 o'clock yet." Miles walked over to the wheelchair and crouched in front of his daughter, meeting her eyes. "Ellie, what would you like to do right now?" The question caught her completely off guard. She blinked a few times, as if unsure she'd heard correctly. "With me? With me? Anything. Anything." A slow smile spread across Ellie's face, the same smile he'd seen in the photo, the one June had managed to draw out. "Can I think about it?" "You can take all the time you need." Ellie stayed quiet for a moment, clearly processing this new idea of having her father's full attention. "Do you want to go to the park with me?" she finally asked in a hopeful voice. Miles felt his heart tighten. When was the last time they had gone to the park together? When was the last time he had given her an entire day of attention? "How about we go tomorrow?" he said. "I cancelled all my meetings. We can spend the whole day together." "Really? But tomorrow is a work day." "Yes, it is. But I cancelled everything. Tomorrow will be just for us." Ellie's smile stretched until it filled her entire face. "Promise? Promise? And you won't bring your work phone?" Her question hit him like a slap. She knew his habits all too well. "I won't bring my work phone," he promised. Ellie clapped her hands on the wheelchair. "Great. I want to show you how I can make the chair go faster, and I can teach you the new game June taught me." Miles smiled back, a genuine smile, without rush or distraction. "Tomorrow will be our day, I promise." As they headed home that afternoon, Miles felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't happiness, not yet. It was something smaller, more fragile yet infinitely precious. It was hope. Hope that there was still time to reclaim what he'd lost with his daughter. Hope that she would forgive him for his months of absence. Hope that they could rebuild a new kind of father-daughter relationship, one that started with the simplest thing in the world, being present. Ellie woke up before the alarm. It was still dark outside, but she couldn't sleep anymore. Today was the day her dad had promised to spend entirely with her. No work, no phone, no important meetings. She sat up in bed and looked at the wheelchair beside her. Normally, waking up early was bad because it meant more hours alone until someone came to help. But today was different. She was excited. "Maria," she called, louder than usual. Maria appeared in the doorway, still tying her apron. "Good morning, sweetheart. You're up early today." "Today is special. My dad is going to spend the whole day with me. He promised." Maria smiled. She'd worked in that house for 3 years and rarely saw Miles spend real time with his daughter. "That's wonderful, Ellie. Want me to help you get ready?" "Yes, please. And can I wear the pink shirt with flowers? The one Mom bought for me?" "Of course you can." Ellie got ready with extra care. She chose her favorite shirt, a matching skirt, and asked Maria to tie her hair in a neat ponytail. She wanted to look pretty for her dad. When she went downstairs to the kitchen, Miles was already there. But instead of his usual suit, he was wearing jeans and a light blue shirt. He looked different, younger, more relaxed. "Good morning, Dad." Miles turned around and smiled when he saw his daughter all dressed up. "Good morning, Princess. You look beautiful today." Ellie beamed. It had been a long time since her dad called her Princess. "You look different too. I like your outfit. I thought it'd be better for our special day." Miles knelt in front of the wheelchair and looked Ellie in the eyes. "Today is all ours," he said, holding her gaze. "No rush, no work, nothing more important than you." Ellie's eyes sparkled. "Really? Really? What are we going to do?" "You decide. It's your day." Ellie thought for a moment, clearly trying to choose from all the things she'd always wanted to do with her dad. "Can I pick everything?" "Everything. Then I want to have breakfast really slowly, talking together. Then I want to go to the park and the mall too, and I want ice cream. And I want you to tell me stories about Mom." Miles felt a pang in his chest at that last request, but nodded. "Then that's exactly what we'll do." Breakfast was different than all the others. Normally, Miles ate standing up, checking emails on his phone, already thinking about his first meeting of the day. Ellie ate alone with only Maria for company. But today, Miles sat at the table beside his daughter. No phone, no rush, no distraction. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "You can ask anything." "Why do you work so much?" The question caught him off guard. How to explain guilt, avoidance, and fear to a 5-year-old? Because after Mom was gone, I thought working a lot was the best way to take care of you. But I don't need that much work. I need you." The simplicity of her answer felt like a gentle slap. "You're right. I took too long to figure that out." Ellie took a sip of orange juice. "June told me that sometimes adults get confused about what's really important. June is very wise." "She is. She said love doesn't need a lot of money to exist." Miles stopped eating. A cleaning lady was teaching his daughter about love, and she was right. "What else did June say?" "That you love me a lot, but sometimes parents forget how to show it." June's words, transmitted through Ellie's innocent voice, struck deep in Miles's heart. She's right about that too. So are you going to remember to show it now? I'm going to remember every day. After breakfast, they went to the park. Miles pushed Ellie's wheelchair slowly, without rushing, stopping whenever she wanted to look at something. A dog playing, an interesting tree, kids running in the grass. Dad, see those boys playing soccer? Miles looked where Ellie was pointing. Two kids were kicking a ball back and forth. I see them. Sometimes I get sad because I can't run like they do. Miles's heart clenched. He stopped pushing the chair and crouched beside his daughter. It must be really hard. Yeah, but June taught me something. What? That everybody has things they can do and things they can't. Those boys can run, but I know stuff they don't. Like what? I know how to make this wheelchair spin really fast. Want to see? Ellie demonstrated how she could make the chair turn in a quick, smooth motion. Miles smiled, impressed. That's amazing. Can you teach me? Yes. But first you have to push slowly. For an hour, Ellie showed her dad all the tricks she'd learned in her wheelchair. Miles genuinely enjoyed himself, laughing at his awkward attempts to imitate her movements. Now can I show you the game June taught me? Sure. Ellie picked up some fallen leaves from the ground and began arranging them in rows. Like this. We make leaf families. The big ones are the parents, the medium ones are the kids, and the tiny ones are the babies. Miles watched as Ellie carefully set up the families on a park bench. And then? Then we invent stories for each family. Want to make up a story with me? Yes, I do. They spent almost an hour creating elaborate tales about the leaf families. Ellie's imagination was vivid, and she added details about where each family lived, what they ate, how they spent their days. Miles realized he hadn't known this creative side of his daughter. It had been so long since he'd played with her that he'd missed out on her growth. Dad? Yes. Are you having fun? I'm having a lot of fun. How about you? A lot too. I like teaching you the games. After the park, they went to the mall. Ellie wanted to show her dad the toy store she always visited with Maria. Miles let her pick out a new book and a puzzle. Will you help me with the puzzle at home? Of course, even if it takes a long time. Even if it takes a long time. In the food court, they shared a strawberry milkshake. Something Ellie had always wanted to do, but Miles had never found the time. Dad, can I tell you a secret? Sure. I was scared you didn't love me anymore. Miles felt his heart stop. Why would you think that? Because you changed after Mom died. You got more distant. I thought maybe it was my fault. Tears welled up in Miles's eyes. How could a 5-year-old carry such a heavy burden of guilt? Ellie, look at me. She lifted her big, expressive eyes. Nothing that happened was your fault, nothing. I love you more than anything in this world. If I got distant, it's because I was confused and sad, not because you did something wrong. Are you sure? Absolutely sure. Ellie smiled and reached out her small hand to her dad. Miles held it between his own. I'm glad to have you back, Dad. Her words hit Miles like a lightning bolt. He hadn't physically gone anywhere, but Ellie was right. He had been absent in every way that mattered. I'm glad to be back too, he said, gently squeezing her hand. On the way home, Ellie fell asleep in the chair. Miles watched her in the rearview mirror, the peaceful little face, a slight smile on her lips even while sleeping. Once they arrived home, he carried her in his arms to her bedroom, careful not to wake her. As he tucked her in, Ellie opened her eyes for a moment. Dad? Yes, Princess? Can tomorrow be just ours again? Miles smiled and kissed her forehead. We'll have many more days like this, I promise. Really? Really. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Ellie. More than you can imagine. As he left the room, Miles felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years. It wasn't just relief or satisfaction for keeping a promise. It was a true sense of connection. For the first time since the accident, he felt like a dad again. And more importantly, Ellie felt like a truly loved daughter again. That day, they hadn't just spent time together. They had started building a new way of being a family. A way based on presence, listening, and showing love through simple actions. Miles sat in the living room and picked up his phone. There were dozens of messages from work, urgent emails, missed calls. For the first time in 2 years, he didn't care. There were more important things to do, like planning the next special day with Ellie, thinking of ways to show her, every day, that she was the most important priority in his life. Work could wait. His daughter had waited long enough. In the weeks following the special day at the park, something changed in Miles Stewart's routine. For the first time in 2 years, he began checking the clock at the office not to see how many more hours he needed to work, but to count how long until he could go home. At 5 p.m. on a Tuesday, Miles shut down his laptop and put his papers away. James appeared in his office doorway, surprised. "Leaving early again? I promised Ellie I'd be home in time for dinner. Miles, you've changed a lot lately. Clients notice you're not available late like before." Miles stopped tidying his desk and looked at his partner. "Is that a problem?" "Well, not exactly a problem, but James, we've run this company for 10 years working normal hours. I think we can keep doing that." James nodded, still confused, and Miles grabbed his car keys. At home, Ellie was in the living room working on the puzzle they'd bought at the mall. When she heard the key in the door, she looked at the clock on the wall. "Dad, you're home early." "I am. I promised we'd have dinner together, remember?" The smile that spread across Ellie's face was worth more than any contract Miles could have closed by working late. "Want to help me finish the puzzle before dinner?" "Of course I do." Miles sat on the floor next to Ellie's wheelchair and began searching for pieces. It was a 1,000-piece puzzle showing a castle, and they had only managed to put the borders together. "This blue piece goes here," Ellie said, fitting a bit of sky in place. "How do you know where each piece goes?" "June taught me a trick. First, you separate the pieces by color, then you match up the similar bits." June. Always June. Miles had lost count of how many times Ellie mentioned the cleaning lady at the company. Every new game, every little bit of wisdom, every moment of joy seemed tied to that kind woman. "You like June a lot, don't you?" "Yes, she's my best friend." "What do you two do when you hang out?" "We talk about everything. Plants. Mom, you..." "Me?" Ellie fitted another puzzle piece before answering. "I tell her how you're different now. How you come home earlier and play with me." "And what does she say?" "That she's happy when parents and kids become closer." Miles smiled. June truly was wise. "Dad." "Yes? Can I ask you something about Mom?" Miles felt his stomach tighten but nodded. "Anything." Ellie stayed silent for a moment, fiddling with a puzzle piece without placing it. "Do you miss her?" "I miss her a lot." "Me too. Sometimes I dream about her." "What are your dreams like?" "She's always smiling, and she hugs me, and she says she loves me." Miles swallowed hard, fighting back emotion. "I'm sure she really does love you, even though she's not here. That's what June says too." They continued working on the puzzle in silence for a few minutes. Miles watched his daughter discreetly. She seemed more mature lately, more willing to talk about difficult things. "Dad?" "Why were you so sad after Mom died?" The question caught Miles off guard. How to explain guilt, grief, and depression to a 5-year-old? "Because I loved Mom very much, and when someone we love goes away, we get very sad." "But you were sad with me too." Ellie's observation was like a stab to Miles's heart. "That's true. And it was wrong of me." "Why did it happen?" Miles stopped searching for pieces and looked at his daughter. "Because I was so focused on my own sadness that I forgot you were sad too, and that you needed me." Ellie nodded, processing the information. "But now you remembered." "Now I remembered, and I'll never forget again." A week later, on a Thursday afternoon, Miles came home and found Ellie quiet in the living room. She was near the window in her wheelchair, looking out at the yard, but didn't seem to be focusing on anything in particular. "Hi, Princess. How was your day?" "Hi, Dad." Her voice was soft, melancholy. Miles approached and noticed Ellie's eyes were red. "Are you okay?" Ellie took a moment to answer. "I was thinking about Mom." Miles pulled up a chair and sat beside her. "Do you want to talk about her?" Ellie was silent for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was almost a whisper. "Dad, can I tell you something?" "You can tell me anything. Promise you won't be mad at me." Miles felt a pang in his chest. What had Ellie been carrying on her own? "I'll never be mad at you for telling the truth." Ellie took a deep breath and looked at her hands. "I was the one who asked to go out that day." Miles didn't understand immediately. "What do you mean?" "On the day of the accident, I asked Mom to take me out for ice cream. If I hadn't asked, we would have stayed home. Mom would still be alive." The words poured out, as though Ellie had been holding this weight for a long time. Miles felt his world spin. His 5-year-old daughter had been carrying the guilt for her mother's death for 2 years. "Ellie, if not for that, Mum would be alive," she continued, tears finally rolling down her face. "And I would be able to walk. And you wouldn't be sad. It was all my fault." Miles rose from his chair and knelt before her, taking her small hands in his. "Ellie, look at me." She lifted tear-filled eyes, brimming with guilt. "It's not your fault." "But if I hadn't asked..." "It's not your fault," Miles repeated firmly. "The man who ran the red light was at fault. He caused the accident. You just wanted ice cream. There's nothing wrong with a child wanting ice cream. But listen, Ellie, if it was someone's fault for wanting to leave the house that day, then it would be mine." She looked at him, confused. "Yours?" "Yes, because I could have gone with you. Mum invited me. She said, 'Come with us, honey.' And I said I couldn't because of work. If I had gone, maybe I'd have been driving. Maybe I would have seen the other car. Maybe I could have swerved." Ellie's tears paused momentarily as she processed her father's words. "You think that?" "I thought it every day for the past 2 years. What does June say about that?" Miles smiled despite the tears forming in his own eyes. "I never told June that, but I'm sure she'd say it's not my fault either. It was just a terrible accident, something no one could predict or avoid." Ellie was quiet, thinking, "So it wasn't anybody's fault? No one here is to blame. Only the man who was driving drunk and ran the red light. It was all on him. Are you sure?" "Absolutely sure." Miles wiped Ellie's tears away with his thumb. "You were a 3-year-old who wanted ice cream with your mom. That's normal. That's what all kids do. Mom was happy to take you because she loved spending time with you." "Really? Really? Remember how she always smiled when you asked to do things together? Going to the park, going shopping, getting ice cream. She loved those moments." Ellie nodded slowly. "I remember. She always said I was her favorite part of the day. Because you were, and you're my favorite part of the day too." Miles sat on the floor and pulled Ellie into a hug. She slipped out of the wheelchair and cuddled against him. "Forgive me for being gone after the accident," Miles whispered. "You were dealing with so much alone, and I should have been here to talk about it with you. You were sad too." "I was. But that doesn't excuse leaving you to carry this guilt all by yourself for so long." Ellie nestled closer into the hug. "Now you can tell me everything, always," Miles said. "Anything that worries you, any questions you have, any feelings you feel, I promise I'll listen. Even if it's about Mom. Especially if it's about Mom." They stayed hugging for a long time in silence. Miles felt Ellie's small body gradually relax, as though a huge weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "Dad?" "Yes?" "Thanks for explaining." "Thank you for trusting me." Ellie pulled away a little to look at her father's face. "Now I understand why June said talking is important." "She said that?" "Yes. That keeping sad things bottled up inside makes us even sadder." Miles smiled. "June was right, as always. She's very wise." "Yes. And she'll be happy when I tell her we talked about this." "I'm sure she will be." Ellie snuggled back into her dad's lap. "Dad? I love you." The words hit Miles like a warm wave. It had been so long since she'd said it so spontaneously. "I love you too, Ellie, more than anything in the world. Even when I'm sad, especially when you're sad. That's when you need to know you're loved the most." Miles held back a sob, but one tear escaped, rolling down his cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness, but of relief and gratitude. His daughter was finally freeing herself from a guilt she should never have borne, and he was finally present to help her. "Dad? Yes. Can we do this more often? Talk about important things. We can do it any time you want. And will you keep coming home early?" "I'll keep coming home early. And you won't hide at work anymore when you're sad?" Her question caught Miles off guard. Ellie had noticed far more than he ever realized. "I won't hide at work anymore. If I'm sad, I'll talk to you about it. Promise?" "Promise." Ellie smiled and nestled closer again. "I like when you're really here." "What do you mean?" "When you look at me while I talk. When you really listen. When you're not thinking about other things." Miles felt another tight squeeze in his heart. His daughter had learned the difference between physical presence and true presence. "I'll try to always be truly here from now on. June said that's the most important gift a parent can give their child." "June said that?" "Yes. She said attention is better than any toy." Miles smiled. Another lesson from June, conveyed through Ellie's innocent wisdom. They spent the rest of the afternoon on the living room floor, talking about Mom, about happy memories, about how they felt. Ellie shared stories she remembered, and Miles shared memories she was too young to recall. When Maria called them for dinner, Miles carried Ellie to the table in his arms. "Dad?" "Yes?" "Today was a really good day." "Why?" "Because I told you the thing I was most worried about, and now I'm not worried anymore." Miles kissed the top of her head. "It was a really good day for me too." "Why?" "Because I found out my daughter trusts me enough to share her fears with me. I'll always trust you, and I'll always be here to listen." That night, when he tucked Ellie into bed, Miles sat beside her for a few minutes. "Dad?" "Yes?" "I think Mom would be happy to see how we are now." "Why do you think that?" "Because we're taking care of each other. She always said, family is that, people who take care of each other." Miles felt his eyes well up again. "She would be very proud of both of us, and of June too." "June?" "Because she helped us find each other again." Miles smiled. Ellie was right. June had been the catalyst that helped them reconnect as a family. "You're right. She'd be very grateful to June. Tomorrow I'm going to tell June about our conversation. I'm sure she'll be happy." Miles kissed Ellie's forehead and stood up. "Good night, Princess." "Good night, Dad." "I love you." "I love you too." As he left the room, Miles leaned against the hallway wall and took a deep breath. Finally, they were truly reconnecting, not just spending time together, but sharing fears, joys, and memories. For the first time since the accident, Miles felt like a real father again. And for the first time in 2 years, Ellie was free from the guilt she had carried alone. Their relationship, which had been shattered by the impact of the accident, was being rebuilt piece by piece, conversation by conversation, hug by hug. And at the center of it all was the gentle wisdom of a cleaning lady who had taught them both the importance of listening, being present, and loving without fear. On the following Monday, Miles arrived at the office earlier than usual. He had a mission: to find June and have a conversation he'd been postponing for weeks. He asked at reception about the cleaning staff schedules and discovered that June always arrived at 6 a.m. At 6:15, he went down to the indoor garden where he guessed he might find her. June was there, watering the plants with a small watering can. When she saw Miles approaching, she looked surprised. "Good morning, Mr. Stewart. Is everything all right?" "Any problem with the cleaning?" "Good morning, June. No, there's no problem. Actually, I wanted to talk to you." June stopped watering and looked nervous. "Did I do something wrong?" "Quite the opposite. You did something very right." Miles moved closer and sat down on the garden bench, gesturing for June to sit too. She hesitated before sitting on the other end of the bench. "June, first I need to tell you something. I'm the owner of this company." Her eyes widened. "You're—" "Yes, I am. And for all these years, you've worked here keeping this place spotless, staying invisible to almost everyone, including me." June remained silent, absorbing this information. "But that changed these past few weeks, because of what you did for my daughter." "Sir, I didn't do anything special." "June," Miles interrupted gently. "You woke me up." She looked confused. What do you mean? You brought my daughter back to me. And by doing that, you brought me back too. Miles looked at the plants she cared for so lovingly. After the accident that killed my wife and put Ellie in a wheelchair, I lost myself. I hid in my work, avoided my daughter, and built walls around my heart. June listened in silence, giving him the same total attention she always gave people. Ellie was drowning in loneliness, and I didn't even realize it. Or I realized but didn't know how to help, so I kept running away. You were hurting too, June said softly. I was. But that doesn't justify abandoning a 5-year-old child who'd just lost her mother. Miles turned to look at June directly. Then you showed up and did something I couldn't. What? You listened to her, really listened. You gave your undivided attention to a child who felt invisible. June averted her eyes, clearly uncomfortable with the praise. I just talked to her. No, June, you did much more. You saw her. In a world where everyone looked right through her, you noticed her as a complete person, interesting and worthy of attention. Anyone would have done that. That's not true, and you know it. Ellie spent years being ignored by nannies, doctors, therapists who only saw the wheelchair or the tragedy. You saw the girl. June finally met Miles's gaze, tears forming in her eyes. She's special, June said simply. Yes, she is. And you made her feel special. For the first time in 2 years, my daughter is genuinely smiling again. Miles took a deep breath before continuing. But most importantly, you woke me up to the kind of father I was being. Or rather, not being. You love her very much. I do. But love without presence doesn't mean much, does it? You taught me that. June gave a timid smile. I didn't teach you anything. I just listened, like my mom always did with me. The simplicity of her answer moved Miles deeply. Your mother taught you well. She always said truly listening is the most valuable gift we can give someone. She was right, and you gave that gift to Ellie when I failed to. They were both silent for a few minutes, just watching the plants sway gently. June, Miles said at last, I'd like to offer you something. She looked at him curiously. I want to offer you an executive assistant position. Much better pay, flexible hours, full benefits. June's mouth fell open. Sir, I don't know what to say. You deserve to be valued. You deserve a job where your qualities are recognized. But I have no experience as an assistant. You have something far more important than technical experience. You have wisdom, kindness, and the ability to truly care about people. June shook her head, still in shock. I need to think. Of course, you don't have to answer now. But I want you to know the offer stands. Miles stood up to leave, but June called after him. Mr. Stewart. Yes. Thank you for everything. For letting me be Ellie's friend. For this conversation, for the offer. Thank you, June, for saving my family. That same week, on Wednesday, Miles noticed something strange. June wasn't in the garden at lunchtime. Ellie had gone down specifically to see her, but she returned disappointed. She wasn't there, Dad. I think she didn't come to work today. Miles frowned. June never missed a day. In 5 years, he couldn't recall her ever being absent. Maybe she's sick, he said, trying to reassure Ellie. But on Thursday, June was still absent, and on Friday too. Miles began to worry. He asked the cleaning supervisor, who said only that June had called saying she couldn't come in for a few days, without giving any details. Did she leave a phone number? Any way to contact her? Yes, but only for emergencies. Consider this an emergency. The supervisor hesitated, but eventually gave him the number. Miles called several times during the day, but no one answered. The following Monday, June was still absent. Ellie was visibly worried. Dad, what if something happened to June? The concern in her voice made Miles make a decision. We're going to find out where she lives. With help from the HR department, Miles got June's address. It was in a modest neighborhood, in a small house with a yard full of plants. When they rang the doorbell, no one answered. Miles was about to give up when a neighbor appeared. Are you looking for June? Yes, I'm her boss. She hasn't come to work all week and we're worried. The woman sighed. Her mother had a crisis. She's been at St. Paul's Hospital for a week. June hasn't left her side. Miles felt his stomach tighten. June was going through a crisis alone, with no help. Thank you for letting us know. In the car, Ellie asked, "Dad, is June okay? Her mum is sick in the hospital. Can we visit?" Miles looked at his daughter in the rearview mirror. She was genuinely worried about her friend. "We can." St. Paul's Hospital was a large, impersonal building. At reception, Miles asked about June's mother, but was told only family could get information. "I'm her daughter's employer. I want to know how I can help." The receptionist was firm, but a passing nurse overheard the conversation. "Are you Miles? June talked about you." "She did. She mentioned the little girl, how you changed after you began paying more attention to your daughter. She's so happy telling these stories." Miles felt a wave of emotion. "How is her mother?" "It's complicated. Severe pneumonia. June hasn't left since we admitted her. She's in room 304. Miles and Ellie took the elevator to the third floor. When they reached room 304, they saw June sitting in a chair by the bed, where an elderly woman lay connected to several machines. June looked different. She seemed thinner, with deep circles under her eyes, obviously exhausted. "June," Miles called softly. She turned around, surprised. "Mr. Stewart." "Ellie, what are you doing here?" Ellie wheeled herself closer to June. "We got worried when you didn't come to work." June stood up quickly. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I know I should have given better notice, but—" "June, stop. You don't have to apologize for taking care of your mother. But I missed work, and you were right to— Family comes first." June looked at him as surprised. "How is she?" Miles asked, nodding toward the woman in the bed. "She's improving, thank God. The doctors say she'll recover, but it'll take time." "And you? When was the last time you ate or slept?" June looked away. "I'm fine." "You're not—" "You're exhausted." Miles surveyed the room, a basic private space in a public hospital with simple equipment. "June, I want to transfer your mother to a better room with a full medical team, the best doctors available." "Sir, I can't accept that." "You took care of my daughter. Now I'll take care of you." "But it's so expensive." "June," Miles interrupted, "you gave me my daughter back. There's no price for that." June started to cry. "I didn't do anything special." "You did. Now let me repay you." Miles left the room and returned half an hour later with a private medical team. Within 2 hours, June's mother was settled in a private room with 24-hour nursing and the best pulmonologists in the city. "June, now you're going to go home and rest," Miles said. "I can't leave her alone." "She won't be alone. There are nurses here all the time. You need to sleep." "But no buts. I'll have a driver take you home. And I don't want to see you back here until tomorrow afternoon, after you've slept and eaten properly." June looked at Miles with tears in her eyes. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you taught me that caring for the people who matter is what really counts in life." Miles knelt down in front of Ellie. "Do you want to say anything to June?" Ellie opened her arms for a hug. June leaned down, and they embraced tightly. "June, I hope your mum gets better soon." "Thank you, sweetheart. And when she does, can you come back to have lunch with me in the garden?" June smiled through tears. "Of course I can." While waiting for the driver, Miles stood beside June in the hospital corridor. "June, yes? I want you to take some days off to care for your mom. With full pay, of course." June looked at him, surprised. "Sir, I can't accept—" "Yes, you can. Your mom needs you now." "But I just accepted the assistant position." "You'll still be my assistant. When your mom is better, you come back. Until then, focus entirely on her." June started crying again. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know how I'll ever repay your kindness. You already did. You saved my family." When the driver arrived, June said her goodbyes and got in the car. Miles and Ellie stayed at the hospital for another hour, visiting with June's mother. "Dad," Ellie said on the way home, "what you did was really nice." "Why?" "Because June is always taking care of everyone. It's good when someone takes care of her too." Miles glanced at his daughter in the rearview mirror. At just 5 years old, she already understood the importance of reciprocity in relationships. "You're right. And Dad?" "Yes. I think June is a very special person for us." "How so?" "Because she helped us when we needed it most. And now we're helping her." Miles felt his eyes fill with tears. His daughter had discovered something important about gratitude and reciprocity in relationships. "You're right, Princess. She is very special to us. And when June's mom gets better, are we still going to be friends with her?" "Of course we will." Ellie smiled contentedly. "I like having a friend like June." Miles liked it too, very much. Over the following days, Miles visited June and her mother at the hospital every afternoon. He took Ellie whenever possible, and the little girl chatted with June about the garden at the company, about the books she was reading, about what was happening at home. June devoted all her time to her mother without having to worry about work. Miles had ensured she had complete freedom to care for her family. June's mother was responding well to treatment. The doctors were optimistic about her full recovery. Meanwhile, Miles kept arriving home early, prioritizing Ellie, being the present father June had helped him become. Life found a new balance, a balance built on gratitude, love, and the understanding that the most important people aren't always the ones in the highest positions, but those who touch our hearts when we need it most. June had come into their lives as an invisible cleaning lady. Now she was a dear, treasured friend. On Friday morning, Miles received a phone call he'd been anticipating for 2 weeks. "Mr. Stewart, it's June." "June, how are you? How's your mother?" "We're both good, thank you. I'm calling with good news. My mom was discharged yesterday." Miles felt genuine relief. "That's wonderful news. How is she feeling?" "Much better. The doctors said her recovery was excellent. She still needs some home care, but the worst is over." "And you? How are you feeling?" "Relieved, and very grateful for everything you did for us." Miles smiled on the other end of the line. "I'm glad she's well. And June, don't worry about returning to work. Take as much time as you need." "Thank you, sir. You have no idea how much that means to me." When he hung up, Miles went to the living room where Ellie was working on a puzzle. "Ellie, I have good news." She lifted her eyes, curious. "What?" "June's mom got discharged from the hospital. She's home now." Ellie's face lit up. "Really? She's okay?" "She's okay. She's fully recovered." Ellie clapped her hands, excited. "That's so good. I was worried." Miles sat beside his daughter. "How about we go visit them this weekend? I'm sure June would be happy to see us." "Really? Of course, you can bring the drawing you made for her." Ellie had spent the entire week working on a special drawing for June. It was a large sheet of paper with colorful flowers, her and June in the company's garden, and words written in careful letters. "I'll finish coloring it today," she said, excited. For the rest of Friday, Ellie worked diligently on the drawing. She took her time on every detail: the colors of the flowers, the shape of the leaves, the smiles on their faces. At the top, in bright letters, she wrote, "For my friend June, thank you for everything." And underneath, in simpler handwriting but full of affection, she added, "I was sure your mum would get better. No one ever cared about me like you did." Miles watched her and was amazed by her dedication. It was clear that this gift came straight from her heart. On Saturday afternoon, Miles and Ellie arrived at June's modest home. It was a small house but well kept, with a front garden full of colorful plants, roses, daisies, small sunflowers, and various other flowers Ellie didn't recognize. "Look at all those flowers, Dad," Ellie noted as Miles parked. "June really likes plants. It's like the company's garden, but even prettier. She does have a special talent." They rang the doorbell and June appeared, smiling. She looked entirely different from when they last saw her at the hospital, well-rested, healthy, no longer with the dark circles of worry under her eyes. She wore a flowery blouse and an apron, and her eyes shone with happiness. "Miles." "Ellie, what a wonderful surprise." June crouched down to hug Ellie, who hugged her back enthusiastically. "June, I've missed you so much." "I missed you too, sweetheart. How have you been? How's school?" "I'm good. I have a surprise for you." A surprise, how exciting. June led them inside. June led. It was small but cozy, furnished with simple wooden pieces, floral curtains, and many plants in various corners, some in floor pots, others hanging near windows, creating a fresh, welcoming ambience. "Your home is lovely, June," Miles commented. Thank you. It's simple, but it's our home. In the living room, an elderly woman with white hair was seated in a comfortable chair, knitting a light blue blanket. When she saw them, her face lit up with a warm smile. "Mum, these are the friends I've told you so much about, Miles and Ellie." The elderly woman set her knitting aside and stood up slowly, still a bit frail but visibly on the mend. "So you're the special little girl my daughter can't stop talking about," she said, looking at Ellie kindly. Ellie blushed a little but smiled back. "Hi, Mrs. You can call me Grandma Rose," she said. "Everyone does. And you must be Miles," she continued, looking at him. "June told me how you took care of us at the hospital. I have no words to thank you for your kindness." Miles approached and greeted the woman respectfully. "It was the least I could do, Grandma Rose. June took such good care of my daughter." "She's always been that way," Grandma Rose said with pride. "Ever since she was little, always looking after others, bringing injured kittens home, helping older neighbors, listening to everyone's problems. I always knew she had a special heart." June blushed at the praise. "Mom, no need to share those stories." "I must. They deserve to know what kind of person you are." Miles smiled. It explained June's caring personality perfectly. "June," Ellie said, taking a folded piece of paper from her backpack. "I brought that thing I promised." "Oh, yes, the surprise. I'm so curious." Ellie handed her the carefully folded drawing. June opened it slowly, and when she saw what was inside, her eyes filled with tears immediately. It was a colorful, detailed picture of her and Ellie in the company's garden, surrounded by flowers and plants. Ellie had drawn even the specific pots near the bench, with small details like flying birds and butterflies. Across the top, in bright, neat letters, it read, "For my friend June, thank you for everything." And beneath, in smaller handwriting but full of sincerity, Ellie had written the words that touched June's heart most. "I was sure your mum would get better. No one ever cared about me like you did." June pressed the drawing to her chest, clearly overwhelmed, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Ellie, this is the most beautiful gift I've ever received in my life. Do you really like it? It took me the whole week to finish. I love every detail. Look, you even drew the little daisies in the corner. And these words, and they're so special." Grandma Rose craned her neck to see the drawing, curious. "Can I see, dear?" June showed it to her mother, who examined it closely and smiled tenderly. "What talent, and such touching words. This girl has a very sweet heart." "Ellie is really special," June said, still visibly emotional. "She brought so much light into my life." Miles watched the scene, feeling his heart grow warm. His daughter had a natural ability to reach people's hearts with her sincerity and affection. "June," he said softly, "I want you to know you can stay with your mom as long as you need. Come back to work whenever you're ready, whenever you feel completely prepared. There's no rush at all. Sir, you've already done so much for us. This isn't about doing favors, June. It's about taking care of the people who matter to us." Grandma Rose looked at Miles with admiration and gratitude. "You're a very good man. My daughter was lucky to meet you. Actually, I was the lucky one." June taught me some very important lessons about being a father. They spent the entire afternoon talking in that cozy living room. Grandma Rose shared stories from June's childhood, how she brought home injured animals, how she helped younger kids at school, how she always shared her toys and sweets with those who needed them. One time, Grandma Rose recalled with a laugh, June brought home a dog she found limping on the street. It was bigger than her, but she insisted on taking care of it until its leg healed. "What happened to the dog?" Ellie asked, intrigued. "He stayed with us for 2 years. He was the sweetest, most grateful dog I've ever seen." June showed them the backyard garden, which was even more impressive than the front. There was a small vegetable patch with tomatoes, lettuce and herbs, plus flower beds arranged with different types of blooms. "Where did you learn to care for plants so well?" Miles asked, admiring. "From my mom," June replied. "She always said plants are like people. They need attention, affection, and patience to flourish. That's a beautiful philosophy." "And true," Grandma Rose added. "I always taught June that everything in life grows better when it's given love." Ellie spent much of the afternoon exploring the yard, wheeling through the narrow paths between the flower beds and asking the names of each plant. June patiently explained them all, which needed more sun, which liked more water, how to deal with pests. "June, can you teach me to make a garden at home?" "Of course. Next time we see each other, I'll bring you some seedlings for you to plant in your yard." "Really? Which ones?" "How about some daisies? They're easy to care for and bloom almost all year long." "I'd love that, Dad. Can I make a flower bed?" Miles smiled at his daughter's excitement. "Of course. We'll set aside a special spot in our yard." As evening approached, Miles realized they needed to go, but before saying goodbye, he had an idea. "June, how would you and Grandma Rose like to come over for lunch at our house tomorrow? It's Sunday, and we can make something special." June looked at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. "That would be wonderful, but we don't want to impose. It's no imposition at all. We'd be thrilled to have you." "Then we accept. Thank you for the invitation." On Sunday, June and Grandma Rose arrived at Miles's home at noon. Ellie was waiting at the door, wearing her Sunday dress and holding a small flower she had picked from their yard. "June, Grandma Rose, welcome to our home." Miles had prepared a special lunch: lasagna, salad, garlic bread, and Ellie's favorite dessert, caramel pudding. During lunch, conversation flowed easily. Ellie talked about school, the books she was reading, the drawings she liked to make. June and Grandma Rose shared funny stories and warm memories. "June," Ellie said in the middle of the meal, "can I introduce you to someone?" "Of course now, sweetheart." Ellie retrieved a doll from the living room and brought it to the table. "This is Clara. She's my best doll friend. Clara, this is June, my real best friend." June smiled, touched by the simple sincerity of the introduction. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Clara. You're very pretty." "She likes you," Ellie said, making the doll wave. "And I like you a lot too." "June is my friend," Ellie continued, looking at Grandma Rose, "and I really like her." The simple words echoed around the table, filled with genuine affection that moved everyone. For dessert, as they enjoyed pudding together, Grandma Rose told stories of her younger days, how she met her husband, how she raised June alone after he passed away. "Life isn't always easy," she said, "but when we have people who care about us, everything feels lighter." Miles looked around the table, Ellie laughing at a story June was telling, Grandma Rose smiling kindly, June's eyes shining with happiness. It was such a simple scene, yet so full of meaning. He got up discreetly to grab a bottle of juice from the fridge. When he returned, he poured for everyone and raised his glass. "I'd like to propose a toast," he said softly. Everyone lifted their glasses, Ellie with grape juice, the others with sparkling water. "To new families," Miles said, looking at each person around the table, "the ones life brings together through the heart." The toast was simple, but charged with emotion. June smiled, visibly moved, and Ellie clapped her hands softly. "What does that mean, Dad?" Ellie asked. "It means sometimes the most special people come into our lives in unexpected ways. And family isn't just who we're born with, but who chooses to stay with us." June touched her bag discreetly, where she still kept the first drawing Ellie had given her, folded like a keepsake, carried everywhere, reminding her there were people who cared about her. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything, for seeing me when I was invisible, for including me, for showing me that I matter." "You've always mattered," Ellie said with a child's honesty. "You just needed someone to tell you." When June and Grandma Rose left later that afternoon, they all said warm goodbyes, promising to meet again soon. "June," Miles said at the door, "thank you for everything you did for us and for letting us be part of your life too." "Thank you," June replied, "for showing me that kindness is real." That night, after Ellie had gone to bed, Miles reflected on how much life had changed. A few months ago, he was a lost man buried in work, distant from his daughter. June was an invisible cleaning lady, ignored by everyone. Now they had become a sort of extended family, not by blood but by caring, by choosing to look after one another. And it had all started with something so simple, a kind woman who shared half her lunch with a lonely child and truly listened to what she had to say. Listening had changed everything. When someone is genuinely heard, a bond is formed that even time can't erase. Sometimes all it takes is a small gesture, like sharing half a sandwich, to show someone You matter. I see you. June had entered their lives as an invisible person. Now she was an essential part of everything that truly mattered. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.